ยังเสียวฟันอยู่อีกเหรอก็ยาสีฟันที่ใช้อ่ะบอกว่าใช้นิดเดียวแล้วเสียวฟันแต่ก็ไม่หายต้องนี่เลย
Thailand has said it agrees in principle with a Malaysian proposal for a ceasefire between Thai and Cambodian forces and will consider the offer. Tens of thousands of people have fled their homes on the Thai-Cambodian border after intense fighting between the neighboring countries. 16 people have so far been killed in the clashes that erupted on Thursday over a long-running border dispute.
A long-running border dispute flares into violence again. Thai artillery fires into Cambodia, while civilians flee the sound of gunfire. Simmering tensions between the two neighbours erupted on Thursday, a day after 5 Thai soldiers were wounded by a landmine. The conflict escalated quickly, with ground troops, artillery and aircraft engaging on both sides. Tens of thousands of civilians have fled, and diplomatic relations have been frozen. Each side blames the other for firing the first shot. Thailand and Cambodia share an 100-kilometre border, parts of which have been disputed for more than a century. The fighting has concentrated in 6 regions, including around several ancient temples close to the border. The most significant of these is the 1,000-year-old Priyar Vihar temple. In 1962, a UN court awarded control of the temple area to Cambodia, but armed clashes in 2011 saw the matter return to tribunal. 2 years later, the court reaffirmed the original decision, but bilateral tensions have never truly eased. With fighting again engulfing the border, Cambodia has once more asked the International Court to resolve the dispute. Thailand, for its part, rejects the court's jurisdiction. While diplomatic efforts are ongoing, nationalist rhetoric from both sides is fanning the flames. Thailand's acting Prime Minister has warned the fighting could spiral into a full-scale war. For the civilians caught in the crossfire, the only option is to flee, and hope that a ceasefire can end the fighting as quickly as possible.
Now, for a deeper dive into this, I'm now joined by Paul Quaglia. He's a retired CIA officer and the CEO of political risk and crisis consulting firm PQA Associates, and he's based in Bangkok and joins us from there. Paul, this border dispute has been simmering for decades. Why has it flared up so violently now?
Well, it's flared up violently now because troops have been deployed along the border on each side of the border since May 28th. And so consequently, with that many troops around the border, even innocent and unintended acts of patrol or stringing of barbed wire can cause the other side in sort of a hair trigger environment to launch an attack. And I think that's what happened here. I don't think that either side fired the first shot, so to speak. I think that it was some inadvertent interpretation by one side of a benign action by the other, and that touched it off. And so what we've seen since then is about 36 hours now of sporadic violence, launches of attacks, air attacks, rocket attacks in Cambodia. But I don't think this is going to get out of hand, and I certainly don't think this is going to end up as a war, so to speak.
If I understand you correctly there, you say that this outbreak of violence was triggered accidentally, more or less. Shouldn't it then be quite easy to resolve it?
I'm not saying I know how it was triggered, but I am saying that the border situation was quite unstable. And so it was prone to a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of a lot of equipment and troops strung out over several kilometers and 12 different border crossings that could have caused someone to overreact. I think that's what, in fact, when this originally began, a Cambodian soldier was killed by a Thai soldier, but that encounter didn't look like it had been an intended killing. I think it was an accident that touched this whole thing off.
Now, you've been on the ground in Bangkok for years. How do you assess the Thai's military's readiness and willingness to engage in a prolonged military conflict, also given the current political environment there?
The Thai military is ready to be in a sustained conflict. In fact, there's an asymmetric alignment. The Thai military is better equipped, better trained, and has modern weapons The Cambodian side is not lacking in it, but their aircraft are far fewer in number. They don't have the same level of technology that the Thais do. So I think the Thais in a prolonged conflict would be victorious. But let me quickly add, neither side, in my view, wants to have this conflict prolonged. I expect that in the next couple of days, we'll see a slow decreasing of attacks, and eventually they'll be brought to the negotiating table, probably with ASEAN and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim getting them together.
Now, if that does not happen, we've seen more than 100,000 civilians displaced in just 48 hours. How could a conflict impact regional stability in Southeast Asia?
Well, this conflict has turned violent many times in the past, 2011, 2013. I don't think it's going to affect regional stability in any way. And I would be cautious about the 100,000 persons displaced figure. We do have the fog of war here, and numbers tend to be a bit exaggerated. And so I don't think we're looking at regional instability. And while we're on that subject, I might add that Thailand is a treaty signatory with the U.S., and China has certainly offered a lot of support to the Cambodians. And I don't think the U.S. and China have any chance of being dragged into this conflict on that level as well.
Now, what leverage do you think the UN, for example, would realistically have in this conflict, and should the UN step in here?
I think the UN will step in. I don't think they'll have much leverage. The solution to this will only come when the Cambodians and the Thais sit down together. We are not talking about a conflict where either side is trying to put boots on the ground and take territory for their own. The issues at hand are boundary disputes over a lengthy, porous, and historically complicated border between the two countries. There isn't a lot of land in dispute. The problem now is it's been turbocharged by a lot of nationalism on each side, driven largely by domestic political drivers, certainly on the Thai side.
Paul Quaglia there, joining us from Bangkok. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us.
Most welcome, Gerhard.
And we can now cross over to Phil Robertson. He's the Deputy Director of the Asia Division at Human Rights Watch in Bangkok. Phil, these border tensions have been simmering for years, as we've heard. What exactly is behind this dispute?
Well, as you mentioned, there is a 60-year conflict on parts of the border that have not been demarcated. But what we also see is firefights, landmine layings, and disputes not just between the armies, but also between the leadership of the two countries, where you have Hun Sen having released a taped recording of his discussion with then Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra. You know, she's now been suspended, and there's basically been a major break between the Shinawatra clan and Hun Sen and his family. And they used to be as close as two peas in a pod. Now they are insulting each other on social media and really driving forward a narrative that there has to be fighting, and that, you know, they have to teach the Cambodians a lesson. That's what Thaksin Shinawatra said actually today, that he wasn't ready for any sort of discussion about peace because, you know, it was time for the Thai army to step in.
Now, does that explain that this conflict boils over now at this time?
It has been building for quite some time. And with the rupture between the Shinawatra family and Hun Sen and his family, the last guardrails against something getting worse were then gone. You know, it was a relationship between those two families that it sort of held the relations together quite closely. There's been a lot of disputes about closing and opening the border, now criminal enterprises, the cybercrime centers in Cambodia, grievances about different maps, you know, hostile patrolling and firefights. You know, this is something that is now really reached an apex, and I don't think that it's going to end anytime soon. I think that they're going to fight it out, that there's no political will to step back, at least at this point. And this is, again, a tragedy for the civilians on both sides of the border whose lives and livelihoods are being disrupted, in some cases destroyed.
So are you saying that you have little faith that cooler heads can prevail, and that this will develop into a serious and sustained conflict.
With Monday.com's intuitive work management platform, you have the power. Not IT, not admins. You're in charge. So you can tailor work exactly how you love to do it. For example, you can add custom fields and choose how you like to view your work without needing help from IT. That's why over 225,000 customers love to use Monday.com. Because you have the freedom to build it exactly how you picture it. The first work platform you'll love to use. Monday.com.
กลิ่นปากต้องดาลี่มิ้น
The fighting has escalated between Thailand and Cambodia as this new conflict enters its second day. Now, it's yet to be determined if this is going to spiral into a full-scale war or be settled at the negotiating table. So here's what we know as of 11 a.m. Central on Friday, July 25th, 2025. Now, starting out with some reporting from NBC News, they say at least 16 people have so far been killed. That includes 14 civilians and 1 member of the military on the Thai side and 1 civilian death in the border area on the Cambodian side. Notably, and it's worth starting out with this, I'm seeing a lot more information from the Thai side of this conflict than Cambodian. I don't know if that's a personal bias or just what's coming across in the English language, but it seems like a lot of the military reports are much better protected. Very little actually coming out on the Cambodian side at this point. It does look like, according to the Thai Health Ministry, that 130,000 Thai residents have so far been evacuated to temporary shelters. We've seen clashes expand from 6 locations to 12 along the border region, and Thailand has declared martial law in 8 different districts. So when we talk about the expansion of this conflict, that's largely what we're looking at. We are seeing the fighting continue in the areas where it was raging yesterday. It's expanded to 6 more locations on top of the 6 yesterday, and we're seeing an increased use in larger munitions. So more rockets, more aircraft. We actually yesterday, for the first time, saw drones being utilized, quadcopters dropping grenades. There was some fake footage out of, or not fake, but footage out of Myanmar being shared as though it was from this conflict. It wasn't. So we haven't seen any FPV-style drone strikes yet, but quadcopters dropping munitions. I believe they're Thai quadcopters dropping munitions on Cambodian targets. We should expect to see more in the drone realm here before too long. Now, as expected, Thailand has accused Cambodia of deliberately targeting civilians, while Cambodia has accused Thailand of using widely prohibited cluster munitions on civilian areas. When I say as expected, talking about this yesterday, we did kind of view that the next stage in this conflict would be determined by how the two sides present the fighting. We already know, and we'll get into the background here in a moment, that both sides are claiming they are the victim and just acting purely in self-defense after they were attacked by the other. But we are starting to see both point to all of the impact points and say, hey, these are civilian targets across the board. They're not going after military, and they're using prohibited munitions in civilian areas. That type of rhetoric does risk this spiraling into something larger. In fact, that's what a former Cambodian ambassador to Japan mentioned, Po Soth-Arak, apologies for the pronunciation there. He said, quote, "The two sides are now at the point of almost no return. They've locked into this, we're the victim and you're the aggressor narrative." And interestingly, when we look at some official statements here in a moment, they're kind of taking the different stance, saying it's nowhere near that. We still have a lot of room to walk this back. In fact, according to the Bangkok Post, the acting Thai prime minister said the current incidents had not reached a level that warranted concern over a wider conflict, saying, quote, "What we are seeing now are armed skirmishes, not war." So should be a little bit relieving there. Now, we have to recognize that armed skirmishes can quickly turn into war. This is the type of thing that can spiral out of control, so we have to keep an eye on it. But backing up real quick as kind of an overview of how we got here, these are long-standing border disputes between Thailand and Cambodia. Back in May, a Cambodian soldier was shot and killed. That heightened tensions to a pretty significant degree. Then 2 days ago, Thai soldiers stepped on a landmine in the border area. They accused Cambodia of setting that landmine. Cambodia said no, that's been there for a while, and that's unresolved from my understanding. And then yesterday morning, there were some small arms fire skirmishes along the border. And both sides have put forward claims saying that they were attacked and they had to act in self-defense. From everything I've seen, we've got official Cambodian media saying they are the victims, and we've got official Thai media saying they are the victims. I genuinely, for the life of me, don't know which of those two narratives is 100% accurate. But it does kind of set the stage for all of this, where both are kind of saying the same thing. They're both just acting in self-defense. Now, Thailand has since said that they are open to talks. The country's foreign ministry signaled this, saying, quote, "We are ready if Cambodia would like to settle this matter via diplomatic channels." And that's the Thai foreign ministry spokesperson, who we actually have a video from here that I'll play in a moment. Then turning to Cambodia, their prime minister has called for a meeting of the United Nations Security Council to address the crisis, describing Thai forces' actions as unprovoked, premeditated, and deliberate attacks. He characterized the Cambodian response as self-defense in order to safeguard Cambodia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, going directly to the source here, we do have a video provided by Reuters of the Thai Foreign Ministry spokesperson talking about where things sit right now and what is needed to move the ball forward. One that really stood out to me in this clip that we'll play is him saying, "We don't need third parties to intervene quite yet. We got this." But let's give it a listen. And it's in English, for what it's worth.
It's premature for me to say how long the conflict would end. You know, Thailand wants the conflict to end as soon as possible. Well, we stand by our position that, you know, bilateral mechanism is the best way out. This is a confrontation and between the two countries. Our doors are still open. But first of all, before anything, the cessation of violence, the Cambodian side must stop. A lot of our allies, our friends, you know, countries like the United States, China, has called us and to verify the facts and showed concern. And they did ask, they did offer that if needed, they are ready to help facilitate dialogues. In our position on this is that we don't think we need any mediation from a third country yet. If anything, we're ready to use the ASEAN mechanism at this point. I have faith in peaceful resolution. I have faith in Thailand's commitment. As for Cambodia, I call on them to match our faith.
All right, so a couple things kind of stand out to me there. First off, the harping on bilateral is best, saying we've got these other countries around the world, and there's been a handful at this point. We've got some direct statements from Malaysia here in a moment, offering to intervene and say, hey, we'll play the intermediary. It's interesting in any situation like this. I mean, how many times do we see this around the world, right? There's intermediaries trying to negotiate it into the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So it's not unique. So to see one of the two sides say, actually, we don't need that, we got this, it makes me a little nervous. But nonetheless, something else worth noting here is, look, any death is bad. Any violence is bad, no doubt. And there's a lot of people displaced at this point, north of 100,000 from what we understand. But after 2 days of attacks, we're talking about 16 people killed and like 30 to 40 so far injured. And I don't want to downplay any one of those, not by a long shot. To the families, those are, of course, irreplaceable losses. That is not on the verge of a major, major conflict. There is still some room to go before we get there, fortunately. And I think anytime there's kind of an uptick in violence, there's the risk of folks kind of politicizing it to a degree, saying, oh my God, here we go. This next major war is about to begin and hundreds or thousands are going to die. Maybe, and hopefully we don't get to that point, but I do want to stress this is still very early. Fortunately, the casualties for 2 days of fighting, 16 killed, means that those strikes have not been very effective, or there's numbers being hidden. I guess you have to keep that in mind. But it's still well early enough for this to be entirely resolved at the negotiating table. Now, quick shout out to War Noir over on X. A lot of the videos you're seeing in today's clip are from his channel. He does an incredible job sourcing combat footage, war footage from around the world. Anytime something pops up, he's on it. It's incredible. So I'll put his account in the description below. Be sure to give him a follow. Now, turning to some of these third parties that are stepping in, trying to intervene and bring about peace. The first major one is Malaysia. Their prime minister intervened in the tensions, calling for an immediate ceasefire and offering Malaysia's assistance in facilitating dialogue between the two neighbors, saying, quote, I appealed to both leaders to immediately implement ceasefire to avoid worsening conflicts and to open up space for peaceful dialogue and diplomatic solutions. The Thai Foreign Ministry responded to this, and again, what we've seen right now is Cambodia appears to be looking for an internationally assisted resolution going to the UN Security Council, whereas Thailand appears to be wanting to handle this themselves, one-on-one or in a bilateral manner between Thailand and Cambodia. But there are some conditions. Namely, they say Cambodia needs to stop firing into Thailand before those talks can take place. So the Thai response to the Malaysian Prime Minister here, they said, quote, the Royal Thai government wishes to thank the Prime Minister of Malaysia for the offer of a ceasefire, which Thailand fully agrees with in principle and will consider. However, it must be stated that throughout the day, Cambodian forces have continued their indiscriminate attacks on Thai territory. Any ceasefire must be based on appropriate on-the-ground conditions. Thailand places utmost priority on the safety and security of civilians, and at this moment, Cambodia's actions demonstrate a lack of good faith and continue to place civilians in danger. The Royal Thai government has the obligation to protect its sovereignty and its people to the fullest extent. Now, this is generally where we see a ceasefire agreement put in place, a temporary ceasefire, as negotiations are ongoing. So if we're talking about steps in a positive direction, I'd be on the lookout for that in the next couple days, because Thailand is saying we cannot negotiate anything while you are continuing to fire rockets and mortars into our territory. The simple solution there is a ceasefire. Have an internationally brokered, maybe, ceasefire in place so the talks can happen and you can move the ball forward. That's on the positive side if things were to move in that direction in the coming days. The negative direction, something we need to be on the lookout for, is the continued expansion of the areas under attack. Again, last night we went from 6 to 12. We're seeing larger and longer range munitions utilized. An increase in the use of the Thai Air Force should also be a trigger if they start to strike more targets deeper inside of Cambodia. At this point, there's no indication of any international presence being involved or directly backing either of the two sides. When we really step back, big picture, Thailand is a much closer U.S. ally, whereas Cambodia is more closely aligned with China. But again, we are quite a ways away from either of those two parties being directly involved. In fact, the U.S. Embassy put out a statement yesterday, as kind of expected, nothing all that shocking here. They said the United States is gravely concerned by reports of the escalating fighting along the Thailand-Cambodia border. We are particularly alarmed by reports of harm to innocent civilians. We express our deepest condolences on the loss of life. We strongly urge the immediate cessation of attacks, protection of civilians, and peaceful settlement of disputes. So it really does seem at this point that a lot of external actors are trying to find a negotiated settlement, find a way for this to end in peace. I would say my gut says that is the most likely scenario. However, we have to be aware that this could spiral into a broader conflict if the pace continues that we've seen over the last 24 hours. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
Three reasons to start Tai Chi workout this summer. In 1 week, you'll see your energy. In 2 weeks, you'll feel your...
Thailand and Cambodia don't agree on how the most recent fighting started, only that it did, and the other side is to blame.
Yes, both the Thai and Cambodian militaries accuse each other of opening fire first.
The situation has really exploded, where now there are points of conflict at least 6 locations.
The conflict seems to have started near a Khmer Hindu temple on the Thai-Cambodian border. The official Thai account is that its forces heard a Cambodian surveillance drone approaching their soldiers' positions. Then came 6 Cambodian soldiers, armed. Thai officials say they tried to shout a warning, but then those Cambodian soldiers opened fire with heavy weapons, including rocket launchers. Cambodian officials deny this. They say Thai forces were the aggressors, laying out barbed wire in disputed territory, that they were the ones launching a drone into the air, and that they opened fire first, attacking Cambodian soldiers. Whichever account is true, the fighting immediately spread, and people started dying.
Soldiers are firing at each other in multiple contested border areas.
Cambodia firing rockets and artillery shells into Thailand, and the Thai military using F-16 jets to carry out airstrikes. A sharp escalation that's killed at least 11 civilians in Thailand, according to officials.
The simplest explanation for how this spiraled out of control is that this is a border dispute. Long contested territory between the two countries. But the reason there may not be an easy off-ramp to the fighting traces back to a very controversial phone call. Let's start with the border, then I'll get to the call. When you look at Thailand and Cambodia on a map, the line separating them, representing an 817-kilometer long shared border, it isn't quite as clear-cut as it looks, and just to show you what I mean, this temple, the site of the most recent fighting, quite clearly on the Cambodian side of the border. Their claim is rooted in maps from the early 1900s that were drawn up while Cambodia was still under French colonial rule. It respects those borders, but Thailand says those maps are inaccurate and incomplete. And Thailand, being by far the economically and militarily more powerful country, it has taken de facto control of sites like this very temple, defending the high ground it sits on.
This is an extremely old temple that has a religious significance to both cultures, but in particular for the old Khmer Empire.
Both sides, Cambodians and Thais, feel resentful of history. Thais think that the French took some land from Thailand, gave to Cambodia. Cambodians think that this is their civilization from a long, long time ago, and ultimately this is their land.
Over the last 60 years, the International Court of Justice has tried to play mediator here. It awarded sovereignty of several temple areas to Cambodia in the early 60s. But around this same time, Thailand stopped recognizing the authority of the ICJ. It still doesn't today. The country's defense minister telling reporters Thailand is fully prepared to deal with border issues on all fronts, legally, diplomatically, and militarily.
The Thai military tends to insert itself into any political discussions or diplomatic discussions over the border. It also means that when things escalate as they do now, they can escalate quite quickly and get out of control pretty rapidly because of the militarized nature of the dispute.
And so you have this sustained tension, the two sides largely wanting to avoid all-out war, but not wanting to cede ground either. Where things appear to have deteriorated, though, sharply, is around May of this year, when a Cambodian soldier was killed in a border fight on one of many contested patches of territory between the two countries. Then, too, both sides claimed they were acting in self-defense. After that, a little over a week before the most recent fighting, a group of Thai soldiers would be injured by a landmine in disputed territory. One of them lost a foot. Days after that, another landmine explosion. A Thai soldier would lose a leg. That there are landmines in disputed areas, that's not a surprise. That's what you get with decades of war. But in these most recent cases, Thailand's foreign ministry accused Cambodia of laying new mines, that the ones triggered by Thai soldiers weren't there before, which they claim to know from previous patrols. Cambodia says, no, your soldiers just veered off agreed upon routes and triggered old mines that maybe have been there for decades.
There's been a tit-for-tat series of economic and diplomatic retaliations over the last month or so by each side. Thailand cut off certain cross-border transfers of things like electricity. Cambodia banned many Thai imports across the border. Thailand closed a handful of border crossings. Cambodia then issued more trade restrictions.
And all this brings us to the most recent clashes. gunfights at temples, claims from both sides of rocket and mortar fire, and airstrikes, bombs falling onto Cambodian targets from Thai fighter jets. But even still, low-level conflict between these two countries has broken out sporadically for decades. What makes this one different comes down in part to a 17-minute phone call. In mid-June, as tension along the Thai-Cambodian border was escalating, then Prime Minister of Thailand, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, called an old family friend.
Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra from Thailand was trying to reach out to Hun Sen, an elder statesman, and many would argue, again, the real power behind the throne in Cambodia, to try to head off further escalation and find a pragmatic way to cooperate.
So, receiving that phone call, Hun Sen, former Prime Minister of Cambodia and now the President of the country's Senate, very important figure in Cambodia. Now, before I play more of the call for you, let me just say, the call was leaked by Hun Sen himself or his people, posted to his official Facebook page. So we tried to get one of our in-house translators to listen to it, but then realized we don't have any in-house translators who speak Thai or Khmer, which is how the two leaders spoke to each other, through their own translator. So long story short, I've listened to lots of different translations now of that phone call, and while they all do have little differences, they all tend to agree on the most important points of the call, which I'll play for you now.
บอกว่าให้ท่านฮุนเซนเห็นใจหลานหน่อยเพราะว่าตอนนี้คนในประเทศไทยเขาไล่เราไปเป็นนายกที่เขมรหมดแล้วบอกว่าจริงๆแล้วถ้าท่านอยากได้อะไรก็ให้ท่านบอกมาได้เลยค่ะเดี๋ยวจะดูจัดการให้
So a few things to point out there. In that call, Thailand's Prime Minister is asking Cambodia's former Prime Minister to have some sympathy for your niece, referring to herself. They're not actually family. On this call, that would have been seen as a term of endearment, showing great affection and respect. Maybe unusual, though, when soldiers of your two countries are shooting at each other. But what you're also hearing is great deference. What was perceived by many as bending over backwards to appease the leadership of a country that's not exactly on friendly terms. I'll play one more clip where Shinawatra continues to show great deference and even what her harshest critics might consider treason.
อยากให้อังโคไปฟังคนที่เป็นฝั่งตรงข้ามกับเราเพราะว่า
So again, calling Hun Sen uncle, but then appearing to criticize her own army's actions in the border dispute.
ฝั่งตรงข้ามอย่างพวกแม่ทัพภาค2เนี่ยค่ะเป็นคนของฝั่งตรงข้ามหมดเลยซึ่งพอไปฟังนั้นเสร็จก็ไม่อยากให้ท่านรู้สึกไม่ชอบใจหรือโกรธเพราะจริงๆแล้วไม่ใช่ความตั้งใจของเราเลยค่ะ
What Shinawatra just did in that moment was to accuse a Thai commander of being from the opposite side. Again, it might seem strange that the Thai PM would speak in this way to Cambodia's leadership, but like I said, they're old family friends.
Can you hear me, Uncle?
Yeah.
ได้ยินแล้วนะพี่อ้วน
This is a dynastic family in Thailand. It's a dynastic family in Cambodia, even though the structure of government is different. So they've had those historic positive ties over time. Generally, it's not a relationship between two enemies or adversaries that finally boiled over, but I think it's a situation where two generally amicable states have a long-standing historical irritant, which unfortunately was allowed to boil over in this case.
Thailand's Prime Minister tried to explain to her citizens afterwards that this was just her way of negotiating.
It's something that shouldn't have happened. I am sorry for all the people that I've upset.
But the general public certainly didn't see it that way. That leaked recording sparked widespread outrage and protest.
With TradingView Premium, you're never late again. Get unlimited indicators, alerts on everything that matters, multiple
Shinawatra's ruling coalition crumbled when its second largest partner withdrew support. Shinawatra was herself investigated over possible ethics violations, and ultimately, she was replaced.
Thailand's Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra has been suspended from her position by the country's constitutional court.
That's what made this thing explode. And now it's really hard to get the genie back into the bottle because there's no trust whatsoever. Thai leadership has to sit there and wonder what else Hun Sen is going to release next. What other supposed political bombshells is he waiting to throw?
The reason all of this matters is because it shows how there is great instability between the two countries. It's not clear why Cambodia's Hun Sen burned this bridge by leaking this phone call, but clearly it has thrust Thailand into a leadership crisis. And now, the last thing it can be seen to do is capitulate.
The prime minister was just tossed out of power for being too nice to a Cambodian leader. So every incentive now is to take a hard line. On the Cambodian side, I think Hun Sen has staked out a pretty clear position here, painted Cambodia as the David versus this bigger Goliath, that they're in the right, that Thailand is the aggressor. And so there doesn't seem to be a lot of incentive for Cambodia to suddenly walk that back and say, never mind, we'll seek a bilateral accommodation.
So that's where things stand. Diplomatic relations downgraded. And at least for its part, Thailand warning its citizens that the conflict may expand. To be clear, all of the experts we spoke to think this is unlikely to blow up into a full-scale war. But experts are also warning the two countries may lack the leadership strength required to pull back from war.
What's fueling the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia? The neighbours have been exchanging fire along their disputed border. At the heart of the feud is a number of centuries-old Hindu temples. But could it lead to a full-blown war? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Adrian Finnegan. It's a conflict with deep colonial roots, and once again it's turned violent. Thailand and Cambodia have long disputed territory on their 800-kilometre border, a line drawn in the early 20th century by the then ruling French authorities. Tensions have flared before, but this latest violence is among the worst in years. It's killed civilians, there have been airstrikes, and thousands have been forced to flee. It comes at a time of political upheaval in Thailand. Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra has been suspended by the Constitutional Court, accused of breaching ministerial ethics after a leaked call with Cambodia's former leader Hun Sen. In that call, she reportedly referred to Thailand's army chief as her opponent and Hun Sen as uncle. So what's behind the latest flashpoint? And is there a risk of a bigger conflict? We'll speak to our guests shortly, but first, a report from Victoria Gatenby.
ไม่ต้องเสี่ยงลงทุนมากกับการเทรดเริ่มต้นที่เพียง$10เลือกเทรดกับแพลตฟอร์ม IQ Option
Artillery attacks and airstrikes have shattered the uneasy calm along the border between Thailand and Cambodia. Each accuses the other of firing the first shots in a region where overlapping territorial claims have sparked violence in the past. The Cambodian government says Thai forces violated its sovereignty by bombing areas close to a number of ancient temples on its side of the border. Both sides claim the sacred sites as their own.
Thai forces hit us and ran, killing our soldiers. They tried to steal our temple, which we've inherited from our ancestors. It is time to retaliate.
But Thailand says the conflict escalated only after one of its soldiers was injured by a Cambodian landmine. The 800-kilometre-long border was drawn in the early 20th century by French colonial authorities. Its exact course remains contested in several areas.
What would make it turn into a war would be that the Cambodian side provokes us and attacks deeper into the Thailand's territory, not limited to just the border area.
More than 100,000 people from both sides have been displaced by the latest fighting. Many are now living in makeshift shelters, unsure when or if they'll be able to return.
It's really bad. I never thought people would be killed like this. Old people attacked with no warning. It's just so violent.
Cross-border trade worth millions of dollars a day has come to a standstill and tensions remain high. Thailand has deployed armed drones to strike targets inside Cambodia, while Cambodian forces have fortified their positions, digging new trenches near some of the disputed religious sites.
What we can say is the Cambodian army stands firm in its position 100% in defending its territory without fear of Thai invaders.
It's not just the border that is tense. Thai politics are in turmoil too. Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra was suspended last week after audio of a phone call with Cambodia's former leader Hun Sen was leaked. Critics accuse the Prime Minister of undermining national security. As diplomacy stalls and troops remain on alert, fears are growing that a century-old border dispute could ignite a broader regional conflict. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
ភាពនៃការឈ្លានពានរបស់កងទ័ពថៃមកលើទឹកដីនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាចាត់ទស្សនិកជនជាទីគោរពនិងជាទីមេត្រីនៅលើទំព័រ Facebook ផ្ទាល់ខ្លួនរបស់សម្ដេចមហាបវរធិបតីហ៊ុនម៉ាណែតនាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីនៃដោយគ្មានការ5កន្លែងទូទាំងខេត្តដូចជាទី1នោះគឺវត្តពោ5000ដើមគឺមានចំនួន3112គ្រួសារដែលមានចំនួនប្រមាណជា10420នាក់ទី2គឺវត្តឧត្តរគិរីតួអណ្ដែតភូមិថ្នល់បែកស្រុកគូលែនមានចំនួន230គ្រួសារប្រមាណជា795នាក់ទី3គឺវត្តកំពង់ស្រឡៅស្រុកឆែបមានចំនួន58គ្រួសារប្រមាណជា208នាក់ទី4វត្តកំពង់សង្កែក្នុងស្រុកឆែបមានចំនួន94គ្រួសារប្រមាណជា316នាក់ដែលឡែកនៅក្នុងវត្តដងផ្លិតឃុំឆែប2ស្រុកឆែបមានចំនួនប្រមាណជា96គ្រួសារគឺមាន315នាក់អាជ្ញាធរមូលដ្ឋានកំពុងតែបន្តប្រមូលស្ថិតិនិងចាត់ចែងជួយសម្រួលជីវភាពប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនៅក្នុងគ្រាដែលមានការលំបាកនេះទូរទស្សនិកជនជាទីគោរពសូមជម្រាបជូនថារីឯនៅរដ្ឋបាលខេត្តសៀមរាបក៏បានជម្រាបជូនអំពីទីតាំងសិក្សារបស់សិស្សានុសិស្សនៃប្រទេសកម្ពុជានៅក្នុងក្រុងសំរោងដូចជាបងប្អូនបានដឹងធ្ងន់ធ្ងរជាងនេះថៃបានប្រើគ្រាប់បែកចង្កោមដែលច្បាប់អន្តរជាតិហាមឃាត់ដែលជាអំពើអមនុស្សធម៌យ៉ាងខ្លាំងមកលើប្រទេសកម្ពុជាដូច្នេះយើងអាចសន្និដ្ឋានបានថាអ្វីដែលថៃកំពុងធ្វើនៅពេលនេះគឺជាអក្រិតកម្មប្រឆាំងនឹងមនុស្សជាតិយ៉ាងពិតប្រាកដដែលកម្ពុជាសូមថ្កោលទោសយ៉ាងដាច់អហង្ការចំពោះអំពើដ៏អមនុស្សធម៌នេះបាទហើយជាចុងបញ្ចប់ខ្ញុំក៏សូមអំពាវនាវដល់បងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងដែរថាសូមទទួលព័ត៌មានដោយប្រយ័ត្នប្រយែងពីព្រោះថារយៈពេលចុងក្រោយនេះមានព័ត៌មានคล้ายច្រើនអញ្ចឹងមុននឹងបងប្អូនយើងទទួលព័ត៌មានសូមពិនិត្យពិច័យទៀងទាត់ហើយសូមទទួលយកតែព័ត៌មានពីប្រភពផ្លូវការតែប៉ុណ្ណោះបាទនេះទើបជាព័ត៌មានពិតសូមអរគុណហើយជាបន្តទៅទៀតនេះខ្ញុំនឹងប្រគល់វេទិកាជូនលោកជំទាវឧត្តមសេនីយ៍ឯកម៉ាលីសុជាតាអ្នកនាំពាក្យក្រសួងការពារជាតិដើម្បីជម្រាបជូនព័ត៌មាននៅសមរភូមិជួបមុខបាទសូមអញ្ជើញជំទាវ
ចាសសូមជម្រាបសួរបងប្អូនអ្នកសារព័ត៌មានជាតិនិងអន្តរជាតិនិងបងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋកម្ពុជាជាទីគោរពក្នុងនាមអ្នកនាំពាក្យនៃក្រសួងការពារជាតិនាងខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតធ្វើបច្ចុប្បន្នភាពអំពីស្ថានភាពនៅតាមបន្ទាត់ព្រំដែនអំពីការរំលោភបំពានរបស់ភាគីថៃមកលើដែនអធិបតេយ្យភាពកម្ពុជានៅថ្ងៃទី26ខែកក្កដាឆ្នាំ2025នេះមុននឹងឈានចូលដល់ព្រឹត្តិការណ៍ថ្ងៃទី26ខែកក្កដាឆ្នាំ2025នេះនាងខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតរៀបរាប់ឡើងវិញនៅថ្ងៃទី24ខែកក្កដាឆ្នាំ2025ដែលជាកាលបរិច្ឆេទចាប់ផ្ដើមនៃការរំលោភបំពានរបស់ភាគីថៃនិងការចាប់ផ្ដើមវាយប្រហារមកលើទឹកដីកម្ពុជានាងខ្ញុំសូមអនុញ្ញាតជម្រាបជូនថាកាលពីព្រលឹមថ្ងៃទី24ខែកក្កដាឆ្នាំ2025ថៃបានបើកការវាយប្រហារមកលើកម្ពុជាប៉ុនប៉ងទុកដោយគ្មានការញញើតនឹងច្បាប់អន្តរជាតិការវាយប្រហារដោយកំរោលគ្មានភាពអៀនខ្មាសរបស់ភាគីថៃមកលើកម្ពុជាគឺជាការរំលោភបំពានទៅអធិបតេយ្យភាពនិងបូរណភាពទឹកដីកម្ពុជាដោយមិនគោរពធម្មនុញ្ញអង្គការសហប្រជាជាតិពិសេសមាត្រា2ដែលហាមមិនអោយប្រទេសណាមួយគំរាមកំហែងឬប្រើប្រាស់កម្លាំងប្រដាប់អាវុធរំលោភបំពានទៅលើដែនអធិបតេយ្យភាពឯករាជ្យភាពនយោបាយរបស់រដ្ឋណាមួយឡើយភាគីថៃបានពង្រាយទ័ពជាច្រើនរួមមាន